put the transcript edit. Are we leaving it up there? We'll try.
I'm going to use it. I'm going to use it in a minute. So
Okay.
should I, if it is still up there in a real trial, should I say may I use this demonstrative as opposed to asking to admit it?
Yeah, most of the time your opponents will take it down, you don't.
Yeah.
So, sorry, but yeah, you can just ask to use it. Would the defense like to call its next witness?
Yes, Your Honor. The defense would like to call Regan Thomas to the stand. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
And will you please state your full name for the court?
My name is Regan Thomas.
And Mr. Thomas, how are you employed?
I currently work as a news anchor and reporter for BNN. I've been there for 4 years now.
And how were you employed prior to working at BNN?
Well, after graduating from Columbia, I took up several jobs with local newspapers and small television stations.
And what were you doing the night of September 24th, 2006?
Well, on that particular night, I was assigned to cover a gun control debate at Midland Civic Center between Professor Elaine Hamilton and gubernatorial candidate Drew Walton. I took Harley Kim, my fellow journalist, with me also.
Now, were you able to participate in that post-debate conference?
Yes, I went to the post-debate conference and asked Drew Walton a few questions.
And then what happened?
Well, after that, I really didn't have much to report on. And I was formulating my story, and I heard a gunshot around 9:45.
Now, after you heard that gunshot, what did you do?
I began to progress towards the back of the Civic Center where I thought the gunshot come from.
And what happened next?
Well, I heard a second gunshot, and at that point I started to run out into the parking lot.
And then what happened as you ran into the parking lot?
Well, when I arrived in the parking lot, I saw Drew Walton hunching over a body. It appeared to be Professor Hamilton's body. He was touching it.
Did you react at all?
Yes, at this point I began running towards Drew Walton, and he looked at me and shot up and threw his hands in the air. They were covered in blood.
What happened next?
At this point I identified the body positively as Elaine Hamilton.
Were you able to remember any other details?
Yes, there was a gun a few feet away from the body.
And now after you saw the gun in the body, what did you do?
Well, after I saw this, I wanted to find out what happened, so I began interviewing anybody I could.
And who did you interview?
Well, I interviewed my former journalist, Harley Kim. I also interviewed the CSI, Mickey McQuiggan. I spoke briefly with Jan Patel and also Walton's personal assistant, Casey French. And I also heard from the police captain, Captain Vanunu.
Now, what transpired in your interview with Harley Kim?
Well, Harley Kim had told me that Drew Walton was in the parking lot and Professor Elaine Hamilton came up.
Response.
Your Honor, this is not going for the truth of the matter asserted. It's merely going for the fact that Adam Oyster, as he was the one who was able to report on afterwards.
Well, like I was saying, Kim told me that he was in the parking lot and he saw Drew Walton, and Elaine Hamilton came out screaming and yelling at Drew Walton. He then said that he saw Walton pull a gun out, and then he heard 2 gunshots.
Now, what transpired in your interview with Police Captain Vanunu?
Well, Police Captain Vanunu told me that Walton was being taken down to the precinct, and that Walton was being taken for more questions.
And what about CSI Mickey McQuiggan? What transpired in your interview with him?
Well, Mickey McQuiggan told me that in a situation such as this, he wouldn't want to be the person still.
Response.
Your Honor, I would like to say again that this is not going into showing the fact of the matter asserted, but what I'm actually going is that this had a direct effect on what he was able to relay in his transcript following this conversation.
Overruled.
Well, as I was saying, the CSI McQuiggan told me that in a situation such as this, it didn't look very good for the person standing.
Now, you mentioned the janitor. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yes, the janitor, Jan Patel. Giamatella came up to me very eager and giddy, it seemed. She was extremely emotionally charged. So I decided not to ask him any questions because it would be unreliable and improper journalism to rely on an emotionally charged source.
Now, you also mentioned Walton's personal assistant, Casey French. Would you be able to elaborate?
Yes, well, Casey French claimed that she had seen what her through Walton's rearview mirror of his car. I also found her to be an unreliable witness because not only did she have a poor vantage point, but she also had a bias. Her career depended directly on the reputation of Drew Walton, so I found her to be a biased and therefore unreliable source.
So did that conclude your interviews?
Yes, it did.
Okay, so now what happened next?
Well, after my interviews, I wanted to produce a story, so I called my producer that night, Fran Martin. We had a bit of a disagreement, and Fran Martin did not allow me to produce the story, so I sought a second opinion from my president, Kit Berkshire.
Now, did you get that second opinion?
Yes, I did. I called Kit immediately after speaking with Fran Martin. Kit didn't give me permission immediately to run the story. She wanted me to explain all the evidence, all the facts first. I explained all my interviews as thoroughly as I could. And after hearing my evidence and the facts I gathered, Kit found my evidence to be reliable and deemed that I could run the story.
And then what happened?
Well, after this, Harley, Kim, and I put on the story about Drew Walton and Lane Hamilton.
Okay, now let's talk about the broadcast itself. Were you able to, do you remember right now the exact wording of the transcript that you had from that night?
Well, I don't remember everything that was said, but I remember what I said that night.
Do you think that it would help you to have, to be able to see a copy of the transcript?
Absolutely.
Your Honor, may I ask that we really use the journalship?
Yes, you do.
Okay, now can you point out any place to me where he specifically said that, Hamilton, that Walton was Hamilton's murderer?
I never said that Walton was Hamilton's murderer specifically.
Can you elaborate on anything that you did say?
No, well, I said that Walton may be Hamilton's shooter, as you can see in the CG lower. I also said he appears to be the person responsible.
Okay, so you didn't actually say that it was him who did it, did you?
No, I did not say that.
Can you point out any other times where you said otherwise, or?
Yes, well, if we look on the second page, we see CG lower. Walton may be Hamilton's shooter.
Can you explain the CG lower to me?
No, this is the CG lower is the banner that scrolls along the bottom of the TV screen, and it's what our viewers see if they turn on the TV immediately.
Okay, now, do you stand by your report from that night?
Yes, I do. I gave my opinion of the facts that I had gathered. I collected my evidence thoroughly, and I reported what I had seen and heard.
Are there any questions at this time, Your Honor?
Cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor.